Noting the hour of 7:01 and a quorum present, I call to order the planning board meeting of February 1st, 2022. We've got a super busy agenda, so I'm going to get right to it. We have approval of minutes. We have a continuation of a hearing for Meadowbrook Commons. We have a complete streets update. We have several warrant articles we need to discuss. We have a housing production plan update. We have a brief discussion on the Upper Charles Trail, CSX rail trail. We have comments for a letter that's going to be written to the state regarding multifamily districts. We have our annual report to quickly look at. We have a brief discussion about planning board training for members and updates on ongoing development projects, 11 Farm Road, 5565 Farm Road, and the Odessa discussion from last meeting, reports on meetings with other boards, and the town planner report. I'm going to try to do things as much in order as I can. I am going to take 5565 Farm Road at the end, and it'll be apparent why when I get there. I'd like to start by saying, initially, when I became chair, I really wanted a more structured meeting. And the last few meetings, when the board's discussing something, I would like the board to be discussing things. If somebody on the board wants to speak, it's tough with the Zoom format. I really would like Gino to say, Chris, someone has their hand up. They will be called on. When the board is finished discussing, I will open it up to residents. I do not want people speaking out of turn. If that happens, discussion will stop and I'm going to go to the next agenda item. It's very hard because people get halfway through a sentence before everyone hears it. And it's not a way to run a meeting. And I'm not going to run meetings that way. So thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes of January 18th?
Yes.
I had two very, very minor changes on page 2. And I've already given this where it says costs. I think it should be cost estimates regarding complete streets. And one other minor thing that I told Gino about, it was about the advisory liaisons and regarding the housing production plan, that it was not in our budget, but advisory knows it, select board knows it, and what we'll probably require is a cash transfer. So does anyone else have any other comments? Do I have a motion to approve the planning board minutes of January 18th, 2022 as amended?
So moved.
It's been, do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Addie May.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Frank?
Aye.
Is Rob here?
Aye.
Rob, and Chris is an aye. We have 10 minutes before Meadowbrook, so I'm going to just jump right into complete streets. So what we have done is we've sort of reorganized the complete streets priority plan. I hope the board has had an opportunity to look at it. At this point, if you have any other thoughts, please forward them to Gino. I'd like Gino to send it to DPW Director Sean Colleen, have Sean look at it, get his thumbs up, and then vote on it at the next meeting. Does anyone have any discussion regarding that?
Just
Is everyone?
if I could just
That's
say,
okay.
just a very short. So the whole aspect, the whole idea of complete streets is to be a thorough, well-rounded, as opposed to just a single focused reason for doing the project. So in looking at items as alternatives to project number 1, Washington Street and Maple. If we look at 2, 3, 4, 6, etc. Those projects not only are an improvement in the town, but also improves motion and transportation and migration throughout the town, which I think is a good reason to prioritize them in this order. Gino and I met on this, and we kind of went through each of the items on this, as a second look prior to our meeting for today. And we agreed with that. Probably the one thing we might say, if the board is okay with it, is to move item 5 down a little bit and bring number 20, the Bay Circuit Trailhead Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project, up to that position. And that would be the recommendation of change that I would offer to this prioritization list.
Okay, so Frank, you think you'd like to bring 20 up and then just move them all down, so 5 would then be 6?
No, I would put number 5 somewhere else, leaving 6 where it is.
Okay,
Number 5 could actually go, let me tell you right where I want, where it should be, actually be number 7.
okay. Okay, is the board, I mean, we're gonna vote on this next meeting, but is the board okay with that? Thank you, Frank. Gino, you got that?
Yes.
All right. Any other comments on that? Hopefully Sean can take a look at it in the next 2 weeks, and then we can just vote on this thing and get this thing off our desk. Still have 5 minutes. Do you think we can do the housing production plan update in 5 minutes?
I don't think so.
All right.
Um,
You want to take it, Eddie Mae?
I mean, so for what I know is we reached out to Jennifer Goldson, who assisted us with the housing production plan 5 years ago. The cost, but we got back of 25,000 to have her assistance with updating is fairly steep. I guess I hadn't circled back with Gino. I had a conversation with Gino asking if he thought he had additional hours separate from his planning board duties to assist us with updating the housing production plan, and whether this was something we could do in town.
Okay.
with
Eddie Mae, may I make a suggestion? Would it be
Yes, please.
possible for you and I to sit down and just sort of look at the options? I've spoken to the chair of the select board. I told him that, we're probably going to need some cash for this, because to put it in our budget doesn't work, because our budget will be voted on about a week after this thing is due, or a week before. So in other words, it should have been last year's budget, basically, which is fine. So they know it's coming, or at least Eric knows it's coming. And we just basically have to look at, is this something we can just update without overburdening the board, Gino, and anyone else? Or can Jennifer come down 80% with her estimate? Again, Eric knows that there's going to be some ask. I'd like to make the ask as small as possible. So if you'd be willing to sit down and we can just noodle it through and decide how we want to do it, and then that next meeting, we'll just tell the board, this is the direction we think we need to go. We'll get some cost estimates, and then I can let Eric know. Is that fair?
Sounds good.
Does any of the board members have any questions? Or does any board member want to work with us on it?
I mean, when we did the first round, planning board assisted with reviewing and editing. I feel like it should be, I mean, in some ways, not a lot has changed. So we've got some updates. We've got a new census count. So there's some data that needs to be updated, but we're not starting from scratch. And
Okay.
yeah.
I also don't want to have this be a burden. Everyone's very, very busy. And who said it's our responsibility to do all this stuff? I'm not saying I'm not willing to do it, but okay. So maybe in the next couple of days or early next week, if we sit down for an hour, couple hours, we'll look at it and decide what direction we want to go, and then see if the board agrees. Does that work?
Yep, that sounds fair.
Okay. Okay. Please reach out. We have 3 minutes. Rob, Upper Charles Trail update. You want to give us, well, basically at last meeting, Rob Wolf gave us sort of an update on where it is. We didn't vote on anything. I guess the first action would be to reach out to the CSX property office to see even if they're interested in what's like, I think Rob said like a quarter mile of old rail trail or old rails. And if, so I think if that's what Rob would like to do, I think we should just basically vote to support him just reaching out to the CSX property office. And then if they say, yes, we're interested, then I think the next ask is to go to the selectmen and say, okay, we have to get a commercial appraisal and start the ball rolling. But I think the first thing we need to do is give him the thumbs up or thumbs down, whether or not we want him to represent us in asking CSX if they're interested in potentially selling the property. And Rob, am I being accurate here?
Might be that's so dead.
Well, I actually already did try to reach out to them, but I have not gotten any response on that. And then at the last meeting, you
This is
suggested
it. I don't know why it didn't connect.
that there's somebody who needs to mute. And then at the last meeting, you suggested I give the contact information to Gino, which I really only got around to doing it just today. So
Okay,
he can give a shot. I don't even know where the property office is. I think it's in Florida, but I don't even have a number for them. Their website is very opaque, I'd say.
okay.
But I don't know if Gino has any contacts with the Framingham people who have been dealing with them. Maybe they can give us a better idea of how to get in touch.
Okay, Gino, would you do that?
Yes,
Okay, if the ball's already rolling, then, I mean, last meeting, we just sort of agreed, but we didn't give it an official vote, and maybe at this point, we don't even have to. But if you could just reach out to Framingham and find out the contacts and at least create the dialogue, because they might look at it and say, no, we're not interested, take a hike. And then that makes the whole discussion very easy. Okay? Is that
Yeah,
fair?
I would note that a couple of years ago, it looked like they had pretty much completely stopped using the sidings in Sherborn, and they actually tore up about half of them. But more recently, I have seen trains parked on there over the last couple years. So they're doing some minor usage of it. So I don't know how much they value it, and whether they're going to give us a ridiculous price or refuse to sell it all. But
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll just take baby steps. We'll see if they're interested first, and then from there, we'll take the next step. Okay? Does any of the board members have any questions regarding that? Is everyone okay with that action?
I am.
You
Sounds
are?
good.
Okay. All right. It is 7:15 and we have a continuation of a hearing for Meadowbrook Commons. So I'd like to call that to order. Meadowbrook Commons, the applicant has asked that the application be withdrawn without prejudice. So I imagine that has to be a motion. But before we do that, does any of the board members have any questions? And Gino, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add other than since the first hearing was scheduled back in September, the applicant Pulte has continued to ask for continuations. And, their explanation was always they have some internal things to work out. And, until finally, I had heard that they were pulling out, and I believe Baystone made a statement at a Conservation Commission meeting. So I reached out to them and I was told that it wasn't final, but it was most likely they were going to pull out, and could I give them a couple more weeks? And And then shortly afterwards, I did hear back from them saying that, yes, they would like to withdraw the application
Okay,
without prejudice, which
Yep.
means it's able to be reapplied for.
okay. Does any board members have any questions? All right, do I have a motion to withdraw the application for Meadowbrook Commons without prejudice?
So move.
It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Addie May,
aye.
Will,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Rob,
I'll vote aye, but I also just wanted to add at the end, the question if we have any idea as to why they've decided to back out.
Gino?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Marion Neutra has her hand up. She may have some additional information on
Okay.
this.
Marion?
No, I really don't, but I raised my hand because I wanted to ask a question probably of Gino or anyone else on the board. What is the status of the ownership of those lands now? The EA zoned land and the Coolidge Commons land? Who owns them and who has an option, and how long is that option valid? Do you know any of that, Gino?
As I know, as of the submission of the application, which goes back to August, that the land on Meadowbrook Commons, that Meadowbrook Commons was proposed to be located on, was still in the ownership of Melchiori from Natick, and that Ben Stevens had an option on that, and Pulte had an option from Ben Stevens. That was my understanding at the time. So that's the last I knew.
Do
I
you
don't know if
know?
anything's happened since then.
Do you know if that option has a time limit?
I don't.
And how about the Coolidge Crossing land? I ask, as you know, because Pulte has also proposed a subdivision in there using both the Coolidge Crossing and the Meadowbrook Commons land. And I'm just wondering what the ownership, I believe it's still owned by Ben Stevens, but I'm wondering if Pulte has an option on that.
I believe that's correct. And then that Baystone has an option with Pulte on that one, but it's still in the ownership of Ben Stevens, as far as I know.
So Pulte had an option and they transferred it to Baystone, or does Pulte still have some control?
That I'm not sure.
I think it may become important as time goes forward. So
Yeah.
good to know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So Rob. So you're voting. We still have a motion on the table, gang.
I did vote aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay. Regarding town meeting warrant articles.
Excuse me, Chris, I'm sorry for interrupting,
Yep,
but there
you're
is
fine.
another person with a, you had asked me to let you know if someone
Yep.
has a hand up, and there is a person with a hand up, Mr. Hargrave.
Hey, thank you,
Okay,
it's
go-
John Hargrave from 49 Rockwood Street. So thank you to Marion for asking those questions of who owns the property. Are those in public record somewhere? And if so, where would we find them?
I don't believe they're public records, but except, I'm trying to remember now because I haven't looked at those applications for a while. I believe those options were submitted with the application, with the development application. So I can check that when I'm in the office tomorrow.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. And so Meadowbrook Commons has withdrawn, but the Coolidge property, as far as we know, Coolidge Crossing is still in play. Is that accurate?
As far as we know.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. Regarding warrant articles.
Addie May has her hand up.
Okay, Addie May?
Sorry, I guess I'm just kind of thinking this through here. Gino, when you say to withdraw without prejudice,
That allows them to reapply.
does that application, is it to, I guess I'm questioning, is it, if the project were something we supported, but we felt the player maybe had not been in good faith, we've approved this, right? We've moved on. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, what are there ramifications here for a situation where this has been several years without information? If someone, if there's a thought that a different developer but the same project, is there any thoughts on, or is that that ship sailed?
No, another developer could come in and build that project. If you remember, the preliminary development plan approved at town meeting was actually submitted by Ben Stevens, and Pulte came in and took it over and made some minor adjustments to the plan. Another developer could come in and do the same thing.
Okay, and if we had chosen to withdraw with prejudice, that would prevent a different developer from coming in and doing that project, correct?
I'm not 100% sure. I believe it would prevent Pulte from coming back, but I'm not sure it would apply to a new developer. I'm not 100% sure
Yeah.
though, so.
All right.
And Marion Neutra now has her hand up.
Marion?
Right, that preliminary plan was approved back in 2017, but it's not a definitive plan, it's a preliminary plan. So to do anything, if Pulte came back with a different development on that same land, say even a very different EA development, they'd have to start over with a new preliminary plan. Is that correct, Gino?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you. Again, for the fourth time, town meeting warrant articles. Gino, the Maple Street, Washington Street intersection, has anything changed since last meeting? We don't have any idea. We haven't heard from Green at all, have we?
No.
Okay, so what we have to do in the next month is we have to almost come up with wording two different ways. We have to ask, if there's an absolute amount, because either way, this has to go before town meeting. And if Green doesn't get on this, we're going to run out of time, correct?
Yes, but typically the way those articles, this type of article is worded is, will the town vote to approve a sum? And if so, what sum? So it leaves it kind of vague until it comes up. But obviously, the sooner we have an estimate, the sooner people can evaluate whether it's worthy of support or not.
I think we have to try to push for an
Absolutely.
amount. And so you and I, maybe we'll work on that in the next couple of weeks and see if we can, I don't know. The gentleman that you were dealing with before is no longer with Green. So we have to make a decision. Do we stick with him or do we stick with Green, basically, right?
Yeah, and that's maybe Addie May has more information, but that's really in the auspices of the DPW.
I know.
We can
Addie?
support and encourage that to happen, but
Okay.
We should have, within the next week, we'll have an answer on that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't.
So Sean Colleen had asked about 10 days ago if we would support a warrant article and again, there's some questions regarding this even has to be a warrant article, but he would like to use some of the ADESA funds and apparently over the past 10 years, there's been over 200,000 that has been deposited. It was a condition of their special permit and it's been deposited into the general fund. So I spoke to the chair of the select board and I asked what process would have to happen to get that out. And initially we thought a warrant article, but he said he would find out for us. And Sean didn't even know the amount. He was just asking the process. So right now that's should be in the select board hands. If it requires a warrant article, I asked if the warrant could be reopened. If not, we'll have to think of another way to do it. So basically they wanted to have more, DPW wanted to have more permanent traffic calming measures in place. And that's really what the money was set aside for. And so I don't see where it's a problem. It may be a problem with timing, but I'm still waiting to hear. Does anyone have any questions regarding that?
I have
Okay.
one additional remark relative to
Yep.
the Maple Street intersection. Patty May and I were talking about, when this actually goes before town meeting, there may be questions about, do we want to do this at all? And I sent out some inquiries to Norfolk to ask them about their experience with the roundabouts.
Mhm.
And the town planner has not gotten back to me, but just before this meeting, I received a response from the chief of police, and he's incredibly positive about the impact of the roundabout. He says the traffic moves better, way lower accident rate. So I'll forward that to Gino and he can distribute that. But just some very positive from a nearby community who did one, a pair of them actually.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so again, regarding, again, back to the Western Ave thing real quickly, because somebody sent a little note up. I was just forwarding the question for Sean. I don't know the answer, so we'll find out if that money can be used for that. And again, I don't know if it requires a warrant article, but we will have that answer. Regarding lot width, we're gonna have an awful lot on our table. And I just don't see us in the next month coming to an agreement on. Initially, my thought was go to something that's very simple to understand, that makes more regularity with lot width. It's been going back and forth enough. I would like the board to seriously think about withdrawing the warrant article and working on it in the spring and the summer and seeing if we can put together something that we can all agree on and maybe bring it back for next year. So what's the board think about that?
Could we do?
Chris, I agree with that. I think that we have some work to do on this. I think Marion raised a lot of good points that we should consider, and I just don't think that the timing is going to work out for this year.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other comments?
I respectfully disagree with Will. I think that some of the comments that Marion brought up are valid. I get a sense we can probably work through them. Maybe doing a quick straw poll to see if we should continue this or not before we actually table it. I don't know. I kind of like to see it move forward.
Addie May?
I mean, there's part of me that thinks that we will never come up with a I mean, I don't know. I've had so many hours of conversations trying to say, okay, well, what if you make the setback on the side and the back identical, and then you don't have to figure out which one is your rear and which one's the side and which one's the back. And tried every which way to come up with something that can't be muddled up. I do think it's right now, because now we're in the heart of warrant season, it's a distraction. So I guess that would be my inclination to table it and refocus it this summer and see if we can. And my goal would be to clarify the language without necessarily changing the definition, but I don't know why this is so darn complicated, but somehow it is.
Rob, what's your thoughts?
Well, I do think that just clarifying the language, it looks like it could easily take, a couple of hours. It could easily take an entire meeting and have cover nothing else. So I'm not sure how we were going to do it in time for that, although one thought might be to put a couple of people who are really interested on a subcommittee to study it and then bring something to a meeting and then have the whole board discuss it as a major agenda item at a meeting. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure that can happen in time.
Yeah, the problem that we have is this wording can't be loose. This wording has to be agreed on and very tight. And basically we have 1 month before it has to be presented to advisory. And I mean, right now we're kind of all over the place. I took something that I thought would be very, very clear and would be an improvement. And I understand all the questions. I understand everything, but I mean, for this to work, this board really has to be 100% on board with something like this. We can't be wishy-washy, or you're going to go to town meeting and get shot down. There were several people that I really value their opinions, and they thought the circle idea was great. So that's why I went with that. I didn't, I'm more of a manager. I have no desire to be a town planning expert. So I go to people that I think have great ideas and say, what do you think of this? And maybe that was the wrong tack to take there, because more questions were raised than solutions were found. So let's just vote on this and see what the board wants to do. Do I have a motion to withdraw the warrant article for lot width? Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Addie May,
Aye.
Will,
Aye.
Frank, you don't
I
have
guess.
to agree.
I can go either way, so I guess aye.
Okay, Rob?
Aye.
And Chris is an aye. So my next question is, who wants to make, you have a month or two to think about this. Who wants to make this their project for the spring and summer? Don't be shy, step up. If somebody wants to do it, let me know. I'll be happy to pass it off and have one of you guys be the driver. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Is that
Chris,
fair?
I'll volunteer.
You want to take it, Will?
Yeah.
I'm happy to sit with Will and work on it if Will will be the driver on it.
Well,
Yeah, I
well, the
would
nice part.
appreciate Addie's support too. That's perfect.
Okay, so you guys work on it, and then when you think you have something that you like, ask Gino to stick it on the agenda, and we'll work on it in the spring and the summer, and we'll see if, and maybe, it's hard to do this stuff in Zoom. It would be nice if we could sit around a table and spend a whole meeting doing that. I just don't see us. I mean, there's too many little details, and I thought we were going to be closer than we are right now, and I just don't see it happening. So, Will, if you want to take, well, you're going to be doing all the bylaws over anyhow. So this is just adding one more thing to your pile.
It's perfect.
All right. So does any board member have any questions? Any other questions? All right. So for next meeting, we will see if we can button down a cost for the Maple Washington intersection. And we'll hopefully get an answer from the select board regarding the use of Odessa funds for Western Ave. Gino, guidelines for multifamily districts. You have put together a letter. I hope the board members have had an opportunity to look at it. My question to Gino is, we have to sort of comply with what the state wants, we have till March 31st to submit comments to them. Do you think, I think it's wise, but what does the board think? I'd like to run it by the select board, conservation, and Board of Health for any comments. What does the board think? What does Gino think?
Well, if I can start, yeah,
Please.
for starters, I just sent that out this afternoon, so I'm sure people haven't had much time to look at it and think about it and such. And I definitely agree. It should be a town comment, not just a planning board comment when it goes to the state. And we do
Yep.
have till March 31st, so there is time for getting input on it from other boards. But this was meant to be a starting piece, and
Okay.
we can work on it from here.
Has it been forwarded to the other boards yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. Would you forward it to the other boards,
Sure.
reminding them that, I would like by the second meeting of March to have their comments and have the letter form so we can vote on it and mail it. And I've spoken to the select board chair, and I asked if he would kindly put us on a meeting sometime in April, because by May 2nd, we have to talk to the select board about it. Correct, Gino?
That's correct.
So Eric said he would do that. So sometime in April, they'll stick us on one of their agendas. Does any of the board members have any questions?
Well, comments, I think it's a good start for a letter. It certainly hits those points that we discussed at our last meeting. So certainly made that happen in that letter.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and there's no question, Board of Health and Conservation are gonna have a lot to say about multifamily districts, especially the size that the state is talking about. So it's important for their input. I have to say, I don't know if anyone had a chance to read the annual report. When I saw it, I said, geez, mommy would be proud. When I was in the Board of Health, with Ellen, I used to write the report. It never looked as good as Gino's. So I had two very brief changes. On the second page, it said the board worked with Sean to successfully obtain a second grant. I think it should say the board worked with Mr. Colleen. I think it just sounds better. And the next paragraph, it says the board was supportive of the Coolidge Crossing project, but identified several deficiencies in the proposals for Hunting Lane and North Main Street. Well, I think we should have 41 North Main Street, because someone just reading this might think it's the other project that's almost completed on North Main. So those are the only two changes I had. Did anyone else have any questions? Gino, is this something we should vote to accept?
Yes, I mean, you could do it by consensus, but a vote would be good.
Yeah, well, I think just with Zoom, it's easier just to, do I have a motion to approve the 2021 Planning Board Annual Report?
Wait, one second.
Yep,
Just, can we do Director Colleen instead of Mr. Colleen?
director's even better. I just think in an annual report, I think it's good to have a little bit of formality, personally. So did somebody move this, or did we?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Any other comments by the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Addie May,
Aye.
Will,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
and Chris is an aye. Good job, Gino. It was very well written.
Okay.
In the past, now I always talk about Board of Health. I love the Board of Health. So, but on the Board of Health, we actually had courses that members could take, and it was in the budget. And I had asked Gino about similar things, courses that they're almost like seminars where you learn about changes in the regulations, you learn about what's going on at the state, but also it gives you an opportunity to sit and talk to planning board members of other towns. And so that's what sort of facilitated this. So Gino, take it away.
So there's an entity called the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative, which offers courses in issues related to planning boards and zoning boards of appeal. There are classes on writing decisions, on the site plan process, on the subdivision process, on zoning, different types of zoning, on housing, and all the issues essentially that we deal with. And they're not expensive. We do have a budget for it. They used to be in person, and they would rotate around different areas of the state. Most recently, of course, like everything else, they've been on Zoom. I sent the link to that organization, I think with the notice of agenda. So you can check it out and see if there's anything you'd like to take. There's also usually an annual meeting in person at Holy Cross. And it's a day-long meeting with multiple sessions that you can take. And that's where you especially have the opportunity to meet with planning boards from other towns. The 2022 conference is not yet been decided. Last I checked, which was just like last week. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen in person this year yet or not. But there's certainly plenty of opportunities for taking classes that you might be interested in. And they're usually like an hour or less each one. So
If there were courses that members wanted to take, should they reach out to you, or should they sign up directly? How does the course get paid for through our budget?
They could sign up directly and send me the receipt, and I'll submit it for reimbursement.
Okay. Does any of the board members have any questions? I think if people are committed to this, and it's a Sunday in February and you have nothing else going on, I mean, I think it's wonderful. We used to go to the annual meeting for boards of health every year, and there was always something to learn, always, and it's networking. It also, if we have a problem, it's nice to say, oh, I know the guy from Holliston, and because when you sit and have lunch together, you create these relationships. So if any of the board members are interested, I think it would be great to take advantage of it.
Definitely interested.
Okay. So if you have any questions, please ask Gino.
Addie Mae has her hand up.
Addie Mae?
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Because I had my question about the earlier issue on the withdrawal without prejudice question, I don't know if we got all the votes in, and I chatted to Steph, and she's not positive either, but she doesn't have the transcript yet. So I didn't know to be safe if we should redo the vote. If I knew for sure what it meant to withdraw with prejudice, as far as another developer being able to bring the project forth, then I might have voted. If it was a vote against Pulte, given this history, I'd be that way. But in this instance, because we're not sure, and I don't, there's still hope that this project in some form could go forward, I would support withdrawing without prejudice, but I don't know if we finished the roll call vote.
Just for clarification, that was the vote that was interrupted with a lengthy discussion. And I know that you called 5 names, because I normally just sort of tick off the names, but because the first 3 were so separated from the last 2, I wasn't sure if there was repeat or if everyone voted individually. I'd have to check for that, and it won't be available until after the meeting is over. So it's up to you how to proceed, but it might make sense to do some sort of a confirmation vote just to have it correctly recorded now.
Okay, so back to the previous question. Addie May, how did you vote?
I'll choose I.
Will,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Rob,
I voted aye.
and I voted aye as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Gino, 11 Farm Road.
Yes. Chris had raised the question about, we had approved an after the fact scenic road permit for that project last, I believe it was June or July, and no progress has been made. So I reached out to the attorney, who got back to me with an email from the owners, who had contacted 3 different contractors to do the work, and none of them ended up showing up. And they're as frustrated as we are, they said, or if not more so. They have a new one now that's lined up for the spring. So hopefully that will get done once the weather allows it.
Okay, so, I don't want to harass people. I just want to make sure for fairness that when the board spends 3-4 meetings discussing and deliberating and talking to attorneys, that these things don't get forgotten about. So does the board think, would the board think it fair to basically put this on the agenda and just ask for an update in July? Does that seem to make sense, Gino and the board?
Yeah, I think so.
Does
Yeah.
anyone have any comments?
Sounds more than fair.
Okay. Again, I don't want to be the board that harasses people, but at the same time, I want to make sure, because what happens is sometimes these things get forgotten about, and then years later, it's not done, and then what do you do? So, so Gino, if we can just stick that under planning board business for like the first meeting of July, and then we can just, and that way, if nothing's been done, there's still time before next winter. Is that fair? I'm going to take that as yes, Chris, that's
Yeah.
fair. Okay. Any update regarding the planning board, the Holliston Planning Board meeting regarding Odessa, Gino?
Well, it's been continued to, I'm not sure of the date. It's after our meeting. It's in February. It's either the 3rd or I believe it's the 10th, actually.
Okay. I think Gino had forwarded the letter that was sent previously. I just want to get a sense, does this board feel like we should be taking any other action? Addie May. I mean,
I think that
that's just having
fine.
sent that letter, that's fine.
I think having sent the letter is fine. It reiterates that, yeah, that our position is the same.
Will, what are your thoughts?
I agree.
All right. Does Rob and Frank have anything else to add? So basically, it means we're going to do nothing, and we'll just have Gino sort of monitor what's going on over there. Right?
Yep.
Is that fair? Okay. Reports on meetings with other boards. So I met with the chair of traffic safety, and I think I was able to get 2, maybe 3 more members, residents, to serve on traffic safety. He was going to reach out to them. He was going to talk to them, and then it's appointed by the select board. So hopefully traffic safety will have a full board and be able to, have meetings with a quorum. So, I mean, I'm not going to say any names because the select board might say no. So let's just wait and see what happens. Hopefully traffic safety will be up and running soon. Gino and I have a meeting tomorrow night with advisory. It should be brief. It's tomorrow night, strictly about our budget. And And Gino, does anyone else have any reports on meetings with other boards?
I don't.
I do, Chris.
Please go ahead.
On the Groundwater Protection Committee, I just wanted folks to know that there was a posting through town, through the town, that there's an internship available for a GIS intern. The purpose of this is to digitize and map some of the well data that we have in town files. So I think the vision is that it would be like, it has to be someone in college who's taken a GIS course. I'm just saying it here because there's an audience of people who, you know, are connected within town circles, and would just encourage folks to take a look at it and see if you know anyone who would apply. In my opinion, it would be ideal for, you know, a college kid who's away at college right now, is coming home to Sherborn, employ our locals, give them a summer internship, and have them help put this well data into GIS, well and septic data.
Well, thank you. How did that other meeting go? That online well meeting?
Oh, it was fantastic. We ended up having 125 registrants.
Awesome.
For the Drinking Water Wells 101 course. And it really focused on well quality, construction and well water quality. I think about 90 participants ended up showing up and staying for the first hour of education. And then there was another hour of question and answer. It was a really dynamic Q&A session. And so it seemed to be very effective.
That's great. And Tom Trainer had a lot to do with organizing that, correct?
Oh, yes, he was the person who organized it. So.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you to Tom. I don't know if he's in attendance tonight, but good job. All right.
Can I just also add to
Yep.
that the link for the video of that meeting, of that webinar, is up on the town's website right now, and also the all the information, the handouts, and additional information is also on the same page in the website of the town. And so it could be forwarded to anybody that actually missed the meeting or couldn't make it to the meeting at that time.
All right, thank you. Any other reports of meetings with other boards? Gino, town planner report, anything to report?
The only thing to report is that the town, we had applied for to participate in this cybersecurity training class. It's run by the state. It consists of an initial assessment that people will need to fill out. It's not a long thing. And then there's 4 assignments over the course of the year that people would complete. And in between, there will be 8 fake phishing contacts made with town employees to see progress, see if they are able to recognize the scam emails and such. So just wanted to let you know about that.
All right. Is there anything other than 5565 Farm Road that the board would like to discuss this evening? All right. So I'm going to start with some comments. You guys, everyone's probably sick of hearing my voice, but I have a few things to say, and then I have a few choices that I would like the board to sort of view. As I have stated, and I've tried to be consistent, the first A&R on 5565 Farm Road, I believe, contained 2 zoning violations. It still qualified for endorsement. All of the issues could have been resolved, and lines could have been drawn to comply with a reasonable person's interpretation of our bylaws. The law is clear in this regard. A&Rs are recording tools, and it is expected for them to be endorsed even with zoning violations. It does not mean we accept the plan as a buildable lot, nor does it mean that it is entitled to a building permit. The second A&R makes the discussion, I think, a little more difficult. The applicant has the ability to correct the issues, but has presented to endorse the plan, it would be setting a very bad precedent, and it would move, and it could potentially move the project forward in a direction that would bypass safeguards and create issues almost impossible to unwind. Now I must share some issues that have come to light since this board last met. The law says planning boards have 21 days to make a decision on A&Rs and inform the applicant and the town clerk of that decision. As chair, this is my sole responsibility to keep an eye on the dates and legal requirements. When we voted not to endorse on January 4th, on the morning of January 5th, the town clerk was informed of our vote. And the following day, I did the same, and it was well within the 21 days. It was my understanding we had fulfilled the legal requirement. Well, I was wrong. A separate note should have been sent to the town clerk's office. The clock ran out and the 21 days expired. On January 19th, we received a letter from Mr. Murphy representing the applicant, reminding me of my unfilled legal obligations. We pass rules and regulations and expect and demand that they are followed, and the same should be required of us. So I do not fault Mr. Murphy in any way. He is doing his best to protect the rights of his client. On January 20th, I was confronted with two possible actions. One, to have a special meeting of the board and vote to endorse it, or do nothing and basically force the town clerk to give it an administrative endorsement. I chose the second. So I made these decisions, again, on my own, and that's fine. I believe our action was proper, so rather than call a special meeting to discuss the matter, I chose no action by the board. Before that, I had sent 2 emails to the building inspector. First email was that we still consider their zoning violations, and I requested, if a building permit was being requested, to have us notified immediately, because it was my intention to appeal it. Everything I'm saying to the board right now has been discussed with town council as well as the select board chair. This board has a lot of things coming up in the next few months, and it's critical that we manage the town's business properly. As chair, I serve at the board's pleasure. So what I'd like to do, sort of the final vote of the night, I would like to turn over the meeting to Addie May, and I would like the board to discuss 3 options to move forward. If I still have the board's support, I'd be happy to remain as chair and fulfill my obligations until the board reorganizes after the next election. If the board feels like it would be better served by electing a new chair, then I would support that as well, and we should do that. Lastly, if the board feels that I've mismanaged the situation and would like me to resign, I'm also happy to do that. I'm willing to do that as well. So it's not my intention at the end of the meeting to listen to any recordings. So however the board votes, I will accept. And in the minutes, the only thing I ask is just to say thumbs down for 5 or 4 or whatever. I don't want to know how people vote. I just want them to vote honestly. We have a lot of stuff on our plate, and that's all. So I'm going to click off, and I'm going to ask Addie May to create a discussion. Obviously, it's kind of weird because it's recorded, and who knows how many people are listening. So, you know, have it be on the issues. Don't be like, oh, I don't like Chris Owen, I want him off. I mean, at least try to be kind. And then at the end of the discussion, I would just like Gino to send me, to call me at the end of the meeting and let me know. And that's it. Addie May, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever, I'll do whatever the board wants, but, you know, I took some actions that I thought were the right thing to do, and I still think they're the right thing to do. At the same time, I want the board's support. And if you guys say, no, we want Frank to be chair, you're not going to break my heart. We'll still be friends. So with that, I'm going to click off. Addie Mae, have a nice evening. Good night.
Okay. So forgive me, but I guess I didn't fully see that coming. And right now Gina, are we voting whether we'd like to keep Chris as, we're having a discussion on whether Chris should remain our chair? Is this?
He offered 3 options. 1 to continue as chair, 2 to step down as chair, and 3 to step off the board completely.
Okay.
Just for my clarification, can you please clarify what happened in the timeline between January 4th and January 5th? He was speaking very quickly, and I don't think I fully grasped that timeline.
Because of the 21 days went by without the town clerk receiving notice of the board's vote to deny the A&R. The A&R, the vote became essentially null and void, and the A&Rs came into effect and have since been recorded.
But his failure to give notice was failure to give written notice, is the way I understand it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Written notice.
Thank you.
He gave verbal notice, but not written notice. Is that what it was?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure which issue we really want to be discussing here, whether we discuss the fact that I believe it was an honest mistake. And I think any one of us would have, I mean, yes, we're all still, the discussion, whether we, perhaps we didn't provide the correct written notice and file it timely with the applicant's counsel. However, the applicant was present at the meeting, and this meeting has been recorded and has been posted, and there have been minutes. So I believe it was an honest mistake, and I don't know that it passes judgment on one person versus, now, I guess, does anyone have any, it's kind of 2 separate issues, whether it's, I don't think the burden falls solely on Chris, even though he's been designated as chair, but anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris has put a tremendous amount of work into his role as chair. I think he's done a very good job. I think this was a clerical error, an honest mistake. I don't see any reason. He still has my total support as chair. I hope that he is willing to continue serving as chair, notwithstanding this mistake. I'd like to see him continue in the role.
I would just like to add that thinking about what happened, if this was a case of purposefully doing something to create an outcome versus just a human error of a mistake that, verbal was provided, but not the written was provided. And so early on in the chairmanship, it seems to me that it was probably more of an error oversight than it was anything beyond that. But I think we should look at it from that perspective, and I would look at it from the perspective that it was just a human error aspect, and I don't think he should, in my mind, have to resign as a result of a human error issue.
Rob, do you have any thoughts on this?
I concur with what the other board members have said.
Can I just say something too? obviously, the burden is not solely on Chris. So, you know, he should not be, he's graciously accepting the blame for this, but obviously it's not his fault.
I mean, it's kind of tough to be competing with someone who spends every working hour doing litigation work with this type of these types of legalese. So I guess I'd like to put a motion out there to ask Chris Owen to remain chair of planning board.
I'm glad to second that. I guess I don't know if it's procedurally, if we need to take any sort of affirmative step here. I had no objection to it. I just don't know. My sense is if we don't, I mean, I'm not quite sure what he was asking for. I guess giving us a chance to discuss it and decide one way or another. Anyway, second. Happy to second that motion.
So I guess I'll do a roll call that we continue as a board to have our confidence in working together with Chris as our chair. So roll call vote, Addie May, aye. Frank Hoke.
Aye.
Rob Wolf.
Aye.
Will Denham.
Aye.
All right, so the motion of confidence in Chris Owen passes unanimously.
Yes.
So Gino, is there a method in place to invite Chris to rejoin us, or?
There is, though he said he wanted to sign off and just for me to call him and let him know the outcome. Would you like me to call him and ask him to rejoin?
If he's willing, I think that would be beneficial for all of us.
Okay.
Because the next item on the agenda is, I don't have it in front of me. I gotta switch screens.
That was the last item.
That was the last item. Oh, well, I guess if that's the last item, then let's see, how do I jump back? Sorry. I'm just looking at our, yeah.
Addie, if you don't mind me just adding, I think your instinct is correct. You know, just inviting Chris back, and you know, not just hearing from Tino, but from the board that he has our support. I think it's the right thing and the best thing to do. I agree with you.
All right, so I'd like to see if we can get Chris back. And I also realize that we do have a number of participants joining us tonight, and wondering if there was an agenda item that I've overlooked that participants were interested in. If there's something that we missed, if someone would wish to raise their hand while Gino is attempting to see if Chris will rejoin us. Rob, I like your background. I guess I need to find something nicer than my messy workspace.
It's a tulip field from a bike trip in the Netherlands.
Nice. But tulips?
Well, something. some kind of flowers.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Marion.
Marion has her hand raised.
Go ahead,
Right.
Marion.
I just wanted to ask Gino and Addie Mae, you had listed on the agenda 5565 Farm Road as an update. And it may be that people came expecting to find more of a discussion of that project. Is that correct? Gino, was that the idea?
Yeah, Gina, can you convey? I'm assuming that is the case, and I'm also assuming that this discussion that was just laid before us by Chris was the gist of that.
Yes, the intent was just to provide the update that the denial had been nullified, and the A&R plan was recorded as presented.
So Gino, are there any next steps? I mean, clearly the planning board was unanimous in its denial at the time. Clerically, there was an error made. Is there anything that as a board can be discussed as far as next steps, or?
I don't think so. I think we react to the next proposal that's brought before the board.
Okay.
I texted Chris and have not gotten a response.
Scott, hi, long time no see.
Yes, hello, Addie. Scott Horsley, 65 Little River Road, Katuitt, Massachusetts, town of Barnstable. I guess I would just ask, what was, if I may, what was the reason for the denial?
The reason for the denial was a feeling of kind of, it wasn't in the intent, the lot line was not drawn in the intent of the zoning bylaw, and was creating a very awkward size, which would potentially cause, just without having a sense of abutting lines, it seems like the lot lines were not drawn as they needed to be to create a lot, that there was a potential abuse of the kind of the design of the lot line.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chris responded that he would like to thank the board at the next meeting, not rejoin tonight, and for Will and to get started on the lot width discussion.
Get started tonight or get started?
Yeah, no, he didn't say tonight.
Okay. Just to even though that was facetious, just to pick up on that, Gino, could we maybe for one of the meetings in March, just to have, I think it would be helpful to Marion's point earlier, start with a discussion of intent and what our intent is here. And then once we have that sort of under our belts, maybe have a little bit easier time drafting the language.
Sure.
All right, so barring no other discussion, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Addie Mae, aye. Frank?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
And Rob?
All right.
sorry, I missed Mary's hand before, but we've all voted to adjourn the meeting. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Right.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.